This is a Q Media production.
I flatlined on my first night. No one laughed at all. I looked like an absolute, utter dickhead.
Would you please welcome Hughesy?
David Hughes!
David Hughes!
You've never been funny, you never will be funny, you should quit. You get that all the time.
Comedian and Twitter ranter Dave Hughes. I don't know if I'm trending today, but I might be.
And I was sad, but I've survived. You'd say you're an overnight success, but you're not because you've been at it and know you're good at it for like years.
Melbourne, we're back, baby!
My first ever gig, it was horrific. 23 without a girlfriend and a job, it was funny. 33 with a wife and money, it's funny. 53 now, my wife's worried about my prostate, it's funny. Life is utterly ridiculous and will always be utterly ridiculous. It's a matter of whether you just want to notice it or not.
Ah, shit, you forgot to put the bins out!
Be as naive as you can, I'd say, in life. Go with no expectations.
How important is it to be marketable? Our guest for this episode is the one and only Dave Hughes, or Hughesy as we call him in Australia. He has been a comedian, TV presenter, radio host, personality for over 20 to 30 years, and that is extremely rare. And today in this episode, you're gonna see him in a light that you probably aren't used to. Now, he's not just a funny guy, but he's quite an insightful person, and he's not just blown up overnight. There's quite a journey he's been on, so we dive into his mindset, how he started out, the art of comedy and the business of comedy. You're gonna love it. So if you're a comedian or you're in the entertainment biz or you just love the guy you think he's hilarious, you are going to enjoy this conversation. Thanks, Hughesy, for being on the show.
No worries, thanks for having me. Appreciate the interest.
Mate, I'll tell you, were you the funny friend?
Not really. I thought I was funny, but I was a shy kid. So yeah, I was an introvert, and yeah, an overthinker, and so I was funny, but I was quietly funny, I think. And yeah, so I really blossomed in later high school. I had a few classes where I had one class in particular I'll never forget. It was religious education. I went to a Christian Brothers College and religious education with Brother O'Brien, he was not fit for purpose, I'm not going to lie. He was not in control of the class. And I did an improv speech on a woman called Sally Trench, who was an English woman who helped homeless people or something. I'd not written the speech. So I opened the book and I just started reading out of the book, and the class went, for whatever reason, I got them, and they were laughing hard. And the class had to judge all the speeches, and they gave me a 10 out of 10.
Right.
But I still failed that subject because the brother did not like it. But I reckon I was 14 or 15 then. That was probably the first taste of, hang on, I'm funny.
Yeah, that's interesting because it's a big jump from being the funny guy at school to then being a comedian.
Yes.
Because being a funny friend doesn't pay the rent.
No, absolutely. And I did that speech. I would win trophies at like Aussie Rules in the country where I was from, a place called Warrnambool, country Victoria, and I'd get on stage. I remember getting on stage once and winning, I don't know, best club man or something. And just with facial expressions, I was able to make the room laugh. So I knew if I got on stage, I knew I had an ability to make people laugh.
And you liked that?
I loved it. It's so addictive. I did I did one 21st speech for a mate and it went berserk. And again, it was addictive. And at that time, I was sort of failing my university degree, which was business. And I actually did IT in 1989, and I failed, and I quit.
Yeah.
IT 1989. The internet started in 1990. Really, I was on the cusp of the internet. I could have been Bill Gates. But But yeah, so at 21, do this speech, kill it, think I'm funny, and then I take that to a comedy club in Perth my first ever gig. The pressure, I didn't realise how much pressure I was going to feel at a comedy club.
Yeah, holy shit.
It was terrifying. I walked on stage at the comedy club to a room full of strangers and I melted.
Did you?
Oh, horrific.
What's it like to take in a comedy club? Because everyone's expected there to laugh, right?
It's bad at any time, I'm not going to lie, and it can still happen, touch wood, it doesn't happen very often, but first time where you've quit university, you feel like you've got no other option, you've decided you're funny, and you're on stage, and no one's laughing, and there's a large part of the brain going, you are a loser, you're deluded, you're going to be unemployed for your whole life. So that's going on in my head when I'm trying to make people laugh. That's not a good recipe.
No.
And they did not laugh at all.
I always put comedians in the same type of respect, or even a level above than musicians and creatives. Like, you guys are like, in my view, creative. The word creative gets bundled up with musicians and the artists. But as a comedian, you have to be making material all the time. But unlike a musician, where you want to hear them hear the same songs.
Yeah, you keep moving. Yeah.
Well, that's hard work.
It is hard work. And the thing about being a comedian, as you know immediately whether it's working or not. As a performance artist or a musician, you know if you got to hit single or not. But if you're in a bar and you're not immediately tanking if you don't immediately know everyone hates you. But when you're doing comedy and no one laughs at all, the whole room knows that you're failing. It's like, but I swear to God, this is my attitude, and I learnt this over the years, is when I can look into an audience that might be laughing a lot, but I can see someone who's not laughing at all, someone who clearly doesn't like me, clearly hates being in that room. If I can look at that stony face, and when that makes me laugh, I can't be beaten.
Yeah.
So when you look into the face of abject hatred for what you're doing, and then you laugh at that, you're a winner, because then you just got the right attitude.
Yeah. I mean, I read you as a very down to earth and very intelligent dude.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. And I think obviously as a performer, you sign up for a lot of that. You sign up for people potentially loving you.
Yeah, or hating you. Yeah.
But it's still, even with that logical thought of there could be people that I'm here for, not the haters, but for the people that might like this. Yeah. You still have to be able to lick your wounds and deal with that type of thing.
Absolutely. Still, every day someone will write on the Instagram or that you're not funny, you've never been funny, you never will be funny, you should quit. You get that all the time. I used to respond to those people. I don't anymore. I just block them. I just go, no, I just block them. So
it's a full-time job.
It's a full-time job, but honestly. But you could go, well, yeah, anyway, you could talk about your bank account, whatever, it doesn't matter. They just decided you're not funny, so nothing you do about it.
How do you deal with that? Like, how do you process that stuff? Like, I mean, younger on, like when you were younger, you might have dealt with it differently. Now, or was it the same?
Well, by that first ever gig, no one laughed. I walked off stage and, that gig was in a pool hall and there was no backstage. The backstage was the toilet. So you come from the toilet, but you couldn't leave the venue from the toilet. So you had to walk through the crowd. So I'm on stage, I've tanked, but hard. And I've got to walk through the people who were just staring at me. And it was awful, And I was talking about how I used to get mocked at school and thinking it was going to be funny, and no one laughed. And
everyone was just a bit sad, were they?
I was sad. And as I walked out of the, so I remember someone yelling, well, not yelling, just whispering, or maybe even just saying it at normal level, they were right to mock you.
The nerve people have. This
was my first ever gig. It was horrific. I went back. I was living at the time with a guy in a share house in Perth, because we're from country Victoria. He was a bricklayer, and we're just sharing the house. And he said, how'd you go? And I said, not very well. And he goes, do you know why? I said, not really. And he looked at me, this guy who I'd known for years, and he said, because you're not funny. So it was a very hard first night. I had to really reassess my life on that first night of stand-up comedy.
No, dead set. I started out as a musician, so I actually supported Braithwaite, Stevens, played with some big art, toured with Jimmy Barnes for 2 tours as a guitarist.
Yeah, so, wow. Well, you know what it's like to be on stage and have thousands of people into it, basically.
I do, yeah. I remember when I was 16, my first open mic gig, my dad took me to a pub at Sydney Junction, and he was supervising, and I couldn't sing. I'm a backing singer, so I was singing my own songs to a bar full of drunk guys. And I saw the manager at the back, and he was just like there going, cringing at things. And my dad on the way home said, do you want some feedback? I'm like, give it to me. He's about to verbally punch me and destroy me. The guy at the back said, is that your son? Because I'm adopted, so my dad looks like he kidnapped me. He looks white.
Right. Yeah.
He's like, is that your son? He's like, yeah. He's like, well, tell him no one will ever buy albums of a little Korean boy. Like, I'm like, whoa. Yeah, and he should just be an accountant or something. Like, And I'm like,
your dad gave you that feedback.
that's what the manager said to my dad. And then I'm sitting there
But
going,
did your
right.
dad say that saying, let's prove him wrong, or he's right, son?
Yeah,
what was your
right.
dad thinking?
So he set me up. So he's like, yeah. So he said, you should be an accountant or a teacher. Just save your son a world.
yeah,
of
yeah,
hate.
yeah.
I said, yeah. And in my head, I'm ticking the boxes going, yeah, I can't sing, cross. Yeah, I'm okay at guitar, tick. Yeah, I am Asian, short, and no one's in Australia like that. Yeah, X. So he's right. I should probably quit. And you could see me sinking in my chair. And then my dad's like, but son, what lights you up? And I'm like, music and creating shit. And he's like, yeah. And you getting lessons? I'm like, yeah. He's like, do you reckon you'll be better next year? I'm like, yeah. Is that guy slightly racist? And I'm like, yeah. So who gives a shit about him?
I love it.
So you got to
That's good.
choose.
I've got tingles hearing that story, honestly.
So I learned from the young age that you have to kind of choose who you want to be.
Yeah.
Or you're just left with the external validation to tell you who you are.
Mate, I'm all for never caring about what other people think, and I say that to my children all the time. Do not ever worry about what other people think, because they don't think about you. They might for a second, but then it's gone. And even if they do think about you, who cares? So I'm all for. I appreciate your father's wisdom, absolutely. So and I try to bring that onto my children. My son plays basketball, and anyway, I give him feedback after his games.
Yeah, you should quit.
The other night, I said, mate, on Friday nights where I love doing stand-up comedy, I'm not really doing stand-up comedy because I drive him to these out of suburban venues to do basketball. And I said, mate, stop wasting my time. You know, if I'm gonna give up my Friday nights, you have to try harder. You've got to go harder. And you know what he said, which he's 14, which I really appreciate him saying this, because at the age, I don't reckon I would have had that attitude. I probably still don't now. He said, I would prefer harsh feedback than no feedback at all.
What?
That was just, I'm like, my God, I wouldn't.
Wow.
But I really took that as what a mature thing for a 14-year-old to say.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So
you go to town on him, and then he's like, please,
no, well, the
I'd
next
rather
week he got
soft feedback.
31 points. He scored
Really?
31, yeah. And then he went back again and didn't score much. But anyway, whatever. He did have a moment in time.
Now, and that I'm sure it helps you with resilience. So if someone comes up to you and says, you're not funny.
Absolutely. I remember once where I almost got in a fight with a guy at a rugby league game because he said I wasn't funny. It was insane. I don't know, but that was my ego, though. You know, like,
Yeah.
what? I wouldn't do that anymore. I swear to God, I'm over that. I'm over that bullshit of worrying about what other people think. So yeah, I remember someone I was with going, "What are you doing?" I said, he had a go at me. It was ridiculous. My ego was out of control, and it wasn't healthy. And I'm in a better place now.
Yeah. Until last week. No, just kidding. Now, I think stand-up seems to be your passion. Like it seems like you're a man of many trades. Like you've made what you've done, Hughesy, is extremely rare, and I think people need to be reminded of that, because, I mean, to be a comedian is like, again, to be an original artist, and it's so hard to earn a career, just an average wage from your art.
Yeah.
And stand-up is, as soon as you start to be a stand-up, you're not just a funny friend anymore. You're a guy who, it's one thing for a funny friend to say, I'll be the laugh of the party. Another thing to say, will you pay me to be funny? Yeah.
But the first time I got paid to do a gig, again, it was in Perth, and it wasn't long after that first terrible gig. Perth scene at the time in 1993, which we're talking 30 years ago, was very small. There was only a few comedians. And once I did that terrible first gig, I went straight back on stage the next night, or the next week when they had the venue again, and I thought, if I don't get back on straight away, I'm not going to do this again. So I thought, I'm going to walk on that stage again, and I did. And I kept my dignity. I didn't get a lot of laughs, but I kept my cool. And then the next time I got on, which was a week after, it was a little while after, that's when I had a really good gig, when I relaxed. I walked on stage and thought, I'm a winner for just being up here. It just occurred to me, I'm a winner for just doing this. I have nothing to lose. And that was the thought that enabled me to make that whole room laugh, because that was the thought of, you got nothing to prove. This is just, you're just living.
I think that broadcasts through, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. When you've got that attitude, the crowd sense it. So, and you don't always have that attitude, and I sometimes I don't have that attitude and it doesn't go as well. But when I've got that attitude, people go with you. So, but not long after that third gig is when I got paid, and to get paid to make people laugh was such a thrill. To think that it was maybe been $100, or maybe. Actually, the rates for comedians hasn't improved much over the last 30 years, to be honest.
Bullcrap.
No, it's true. For like clubbing comedians,
What's an average amount that a comedian can expect maybe if they got a gig?
if you're in a club and you're not, they're not there specifically to see you and they're just there because of the club, it's probably, the rates haven't improved much in 30 years, I'm not going to lie. I mean, that's a lot of minimum wage hasn't improved in 30 years. So it's only like you might get a couple $100 in Melbourne or in Sydney or in, Perth or Brisbane. Yeah, it's only like maybe $250. So yeah, but and it wasn't much different back then. So back then I got like $150 in 1993. I was on the dole. I got $150 to make people laugh. It was just magic.
Yeah, that's awesome. And if you think back, just to park that nearly in a second, like when you first started your routine and you were nervous and you're just finding your way, what do you think you lacked? Like if you had young Hughesy here and you saw your own stand-up, what things did you just need more time in the...
I think it's that consistency does take time. So I would have gigs where I would be really funny the next week or the next gig I would be not funny at all. So it's just... And what brings that experience, I think, and just calmness. So earlier you're looking for you probably give the audience too much power when you first start, and like you don't realise that you have the power, and the audiences are pretty similar, and you're the difference. You'll say good audience, bad audience, and that is true to an extent, but mainly it's you. It's how you are inside, and so most not all every audience. I had a shocker a few weeks ago, but mainly it's when you're in a calm state of mind, the audiences will go with you, and that's takes experience to get a consistency. Consistency as a comedian is what you want. People want to bank on you. They want to know that you can walk on stage and make the audience laugh, not that you might have a good gig or you might have a bad gig. I've got friends who have not ever really become bankable comedians, even though they're really funny, because one night they'll be great and the next night they are flatlining. So they've never got that consistency. So and it's really important.
Yeah, I mean, if you start a Dave Hughes comedy school, that would be really interesting because there'll be. I've got to say, like, I mean, the difference between a comedian because when I think of comedians in Australia, you and Carl Barron come straight to mind.
Yeah, it's a high compliment. Carl's an extremely successful comedian, a great comedian who still sells out stadiums and has for 30 years.
Yeah, and it's like you're one of those names that have been around so long. Like literally, see, Hey Hey. I remember seeing Hey Hey as a kid. Hey Hey.
Yeah. They actually replayed it a couple of years ago. They had the 50 years of Hey Hey, and my stand-up was a bit of stand-up they played, which I was actually proud of. So and that was my first time on TV, and it went so well. They played that in their special, their 50-year special. The stand-up comedy they used was me.
That's so cool.
From my first time on this, and I've never been more nervous. That was probably the most nervous I've ever been in my entire life, because I'd grown up in country Victoria watching Hey Hey at Saturday as a, for young people don't know what it is really, but it was a staple of television back in the 70s and 80s and 90s. And to walk on that stage knowing that I was going to be broadcast to over 1 million people, terrifying.
Yeah.
But I held together, and I was just hoping they couldn't see my legs shaking. But the actual gig went well, and it's always, to a comedian, I always say it's the jokes. If the jokes are good, you'll be fine.
Yeah, right.
It's the jokes, write good jokes and work on your jokes.
Yeah. And that's something I want to ask quickly is like, what's the Dave Hughes process to see if a joke's good or not before you take it? Do you still do underground?
Absolutely. I'm going to go from here to do a little club in Sydney, a place at a pub. So you've got to get on stage. You've got to get on stage to see whether it's funny or not. So just take it to a stage, any little stage or a big stage. You might put jokes in the middle of a larger show, but you've got to get it in front of an audience. Yeah,
that is so similar to musicians again. So I remember,
interesting.
One of the Silverchair members dated one of my cousins years ago, and we had Christmases together, and he'd say they'd go and gig as an alias band name.
Yeah.
Play to a random crowd just to test out their album.
That's fascinating. I find that fascinating as from afar, that a musician has to do that as well.
Yeah, so it's just almost like what businesses do with their...
Can you tell straight away as a musician whether the crowd are into it? Like straight away, you're on stage and you know.
You know when there's dead parts to a song.
Yeah, right.
And you know where there's something there. There's a song they never heard, but they vibe with it, and it's... it's this really strange language that people get. Like, audience, in my view, are smart.
Yeah, right, yeah.
I think it's really... I don't know if you agree with this. You don't underestimate the intelligence of an audience.
Yeah,
you might
yeah.
think this is going to be a banger, and they go, nah.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. You listen to, yeah, I'm with you on that, absolutely.
Yeah, so with jokes, so you test them out.
Test them out, yeah. Write them down. Always, like what I do these days is, which I think is good for the mental health of everyone, journal. Every day I write whatever I've done during the day.
Yeah,
and
cool.
every single day. I've done that for a few years now, and because I reckon there's decades that I couldn't remember anything that happened. I can remember stuff that happened when I was 21, but there's decades after that when I was really successful.
Yes,
they're just not in my memory.
Yeah, for
like
sure.
big shows or big moments that I should be remember forever. I can't remember at all, and I don't drink, so I just wished I had a diary that I could have gone, oh, what was I doing, 2007 on any particular day, and just look at it. But I'm doing that. Last few years I've been doing it, so I can look at, not that I really ever do, but I can look back and go, I'll put this into my diary tonight. So, but there's always jokes, and every day there's jokes. Every day in my life and everyone's life, there's funny stuff happens. It's whether you remember it or not.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, so we're into a lot of I help with a lot of people with personal brands, as you know, and one of the things I teach people is document.
Yeah.
So if it's journaling, especially journaling is really good, because if you're creating shit for your brand, or especially if it's marketing, it's easier just to create what's documented versus the idea of having to think of something out of thin air.
Yeah.
So what lessons did you learn? Who pissed you off? Like today, I mean, off camera, like you lost your sunnies.
Oh, it's horrific. I got out of the cab in front of where studio, and I was on the phone at the time to a mate, and then I got out of the cab, shut the cab door, and realised I didn't have my glasses. They weren't my sunnies, they were like reading glasses. I might as well be blind. I can't even look at my phone.
You can't even see me, can you?
I can see you, but I can't read on the phone. I'm good long distance, but in short, I'm no good like anyone over 50 really. But and within 5 steps, he was gone. Like a cab, I was chased him, but I'm running down the road. There's a laneway behind us, next to us here, and I'm running, and he's not. I'm going like this, hoping he's looking back. I've just had a shoulder operation, so it was hard. But he's gone, and you know what? He won't even realise they're there probably till later tonight, and he won't know if they were mine. And because it's a taxi, there's no details. Uber, you could ring him.
So I think Uber should hire you for the next campaign to loosen your sunnies as the ad, right, Uber? Because that next time a cab, he'll pick up, he'll find the sunnies because they'll be good, and he'll be wearing.
Well, they're not sunnies; they're spectacles. So they're reading glasses, but they're like $200 reading glasses.
Yeah,
which I only just got them about a week ago because I lost my other ones.
So if there's a message that
if
there's a message this taxi driver could hear from you right now, what would you say to him?
Well, can I give the address here? 55 Piermont Bridge Road. Yeah. Remember the guy, 55 Piermont Bridge Road? The taxi driver recognised me. He did. I know he did. But he probably doesn't know my name, but he knew I was someone. Mm-hmm. Can you just bring those glasses back and just drop them in the letterbox, level 3? Because I'd love to get them.
Oh man. So one of the things that I've admired about you, and I've seen this with a lot of comics as well. So Hamish and Andy, for example, their big break was obviously their podcast or their skits and things they were doing.
Yeah.
And in Australia, just become darlings of Australia. And now they've evolved into hosts of shows and things like that.
They're on every ad. I get it. I mean,
walk out of the airport and just see
trying to get beyond my ego, but those guys, I've done ads before, but they're doing every ad. Honestly, I see Hamish and Andy's ads and I just see dollar signs.
Yeah.
How much money do you want, guys?
Yeah, their toilet paper is $50 bills.
Yeah, God almighty, they're rich. But I've got no issues there. I'm getting beyond my ego. Financially, I'm fine.
Yeah.
So, but it's you always compare yourself to others. It's ridiculous.
Because there's one thing to be able to, we talked about how how many, I was thinking to earn a good living in Sydney or Melbourne just to do stand-up shows every single year would be freaking exhausting.
I love stand-up comedy. I do stand-up comedy for fun. Some people play golf, some people play tennis, some people surf, some people play music. You can do that obviously professionally as well as you have. But stand-up comedy is my jam. I just love it. I do it for free.
Yeah, honestly. That's what I love.
Yeah, absolutely.
About this.
Do it for free. And a lot of I'll be hopefully doing stand-up comedy till I'm 100 or till I'm dead.
Please, you'll be funnier as you get older.
I think I'm getting funny. It's being said. I mean, I'm not the only one saying it.
The older you look. Because I saw this comedian pop up on TikTok, and that's what we'll talk about next, is like just how people are discovered now.
Oh, TikTok, I know, mate. I'm trying to be, as you know, I'm trying to get some algorithm love on TikTok. Or
Yeah, go follow Hughesy on TikTok.
Find me on TikTok or anywhere.
Yeah,
Come to a show.
There's this guy on TikTok. He's from America. I don't remember his name, but I've saved a whole bunch of his stuff. This old man, like he's literally in his 80s, and he's doing stand up.
That's what I love. I'd love to be discovered in America at the age of 87.
That it will
and
happen.
they're going to go, oh my God, that guy. And for them not to know I've been doing comedy for like 50 years.
He just made it?
Yeah, he's just like, oh my God, that guy's hilarious, you know? Without knowing that, yes, all right.
You got your respirator on and you're doing the stand-up.
Mate, I do stand-up comedy. I've done very little stand-up comedy in America, but I was there a couple of, just not January this January, but January last year. And someone local just, it was a weird reason, but they just hit me up on Instagram and I said, I'm actually in LA right now. And they said, really? I said, yeah. And they said, do you want to do a gig? And I said, sure. And they got me to a comedy club down in Burbank. And I ended up doing about 5 or 6 gigs there. It was really fun. Mm-hmm. But I love that audience who no idea who I am. Just go, what's this guy? Who's this guy? And then my voice is odd here, but it's very odd there. And but then they're laughing hard, you know. And you're like, and you get that smell of a new fresh audience. And I'm like, said to my wife, can we move? She goes, no. I said, shit. I've got 6 years before the kids get old. Once the kids finish school, I've just got to stay alive.
Yeah, you can stay alive and then you can make your big break.
Yeah, I just got to stay alive.
Yeah. I saw this guy on TikTok and he's like, seriously, late 70s, 80s.
Yeah, it's great.
And
I'm going to check this out.
I'll send it to you later.
Yeah, good.
And he's talking about his lack of, you know, like his penis and a whole bunch of stuff.
Wherever you're at in life, life is always funny, no matter what you're doing.
It's so funny.
That whether you're 20, like I was 23 without a girlfriend and a job, it was funny. 33 with a, wife and money, it's funny. Whatever, I'm 53 now and, my wife's worried about my prostate. It's funny. It's always funny. Whatever you're doing in your life, it is funny. Life is utterly ridiculous. And will always be utterly ridiculous. Mm-hmm. It's a matter of whether you just want to notice it or not.
Yeah. No, the word, I think the word comedy comes from some crazy Greek word, which a lot of words come from, but it was used to be able to unify people together, to be able to laugh around stupid stuff, like satire and just unite around that. We've got one identity.
Yeah.
We all crack the shits. We all struggle with things.
Yeah, a real friend for me is someone who when they something bad happens in their life, they will ring me because they want someone to laugh with them. Mm. So it's laughing at our own stupidity, or laughing at things that happen to us. So yeah, so I've got a lot of comedian mates who when they do a bad gig, I'm the first person they ring because they know I'll enjoy it. They'll know. And I did a bad one a few weeks ago, and I thought I've got to pay them back here.
Yeah,
because I'm pretty solid, pretty consistent. But I did a gig for about 800 builders who had just been playing soccer all day, and they were tired. And it was a bad venue.
It's like the last period at school when you get
and I started off going okay, but then I just lost them, and I was flatlining really. And I was meant to do half an hour, and at the 20-minute mark, I thought, no, I can't. I've got to walk. But then I got straight on the phone to these other guys who normally ring me about their bad gigs and said, yeah, I've got a good one for you. No one laughed.
Yeah, how important is it to be marketable?
Well, you want people to. I want people to listen to me or watch me or come to my shows. Obviously it's important. You definitely want it. You chase it. Mm. Sometimes you don't know how to get it. You don't know what to do. I've spoken to you about this, about like trying to cut through more online. Mm. Yeah. So that's. Sometimes you see people and you think, why them? Why not? Even for me, and who's had a lot of success over many years. Mm. But you still get annoyed because you're like, why them? Why not me? Why didn't that cut through? So yeah, there's no. I don't think it's. Yeah, it's important.
You can't have a career as long as yours without having. That's one thing I think you're smart at, not just with your craft, but how you rock up early, like you.
I didn't know how long it was going to take, to be honest, but yeah.
Yeah, well, that impressed me, and I was like, but like. Just the ability to be chosen for commercial stuff. So, the difference between the funny friend And the comedian is talking about, he commercializes things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you package things up. Your routine is like your album.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're no longer managing friends at the life of the party. You're managing a brand now.
Yeah.
You know, there's a business behind it, and I can say I've been around a while enough to get a read on people, and you're savvy. You're very savvy.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that. I'm also inconsistent, and also have intentions, and I don't follow through with them a lot of the time. So yeah, I'm a mixture. So yeah, but yeah, I appreciate things, but sometimes I am inconsistent, and so I can drift off and just watch NBA all afternoon.
Yes, yeah, I think we all can do that. Yeah, but like the idea, like it looks like there's an evolution from comedy, you know, it's like the Hamish and Andy's and the Dave Hughes, to maybe get access to these limited spots on. I go from comedy, build an audience up. I've done it over time. Then what's next? I'll audition for a show, or is that how it works usually?
But yeah, for me, I went from stand-up comedy through to radio. I got offers for radio pretty early on in my career. I said, not early actually. No, I'd been going for actually not that early. First gig when I was 22 for my first gig. But I didn't know for 7 or 8 years whether I was still borrowing money off my parents. Probably 5 years later.
Yeah, great.
So so there was a time where you're like, you say you're an overnight success, but you're not, because you've been at it and know you're good at it for like years, but still struggling to pay the rent, or not having any. I didn't have a credit card till I was probably 30 almost. I never. So yeah, but I was getting better and better at what I was doing. I ended up with it getting a break in radio, and that sort of took off, and that was after Hey Out Saturday. So
wow,
I did Hey Out Saturday, and that went really well, my first spot, but it didn't make me successful straight away at all. Actually, it was annoying that it didn't mean that people just turned up. But at the age of 31, I sort of hit it bigger, and from 1999, which is a long time ago now, I'd been first gig in 93, 99 was when it hit for me. So 6 years of being on the breadline really, and then I went like that, and then my income went up here, and never had to worry about money again, basically.
I love that you said that, because I know you joke around about your money in your skits, but it's so important Aussies that talk about money. I think it's a funny thing.
Yeah. I want to be honest. Honestly, I want to be honest. But yeah, just wherever you're at in life is funny, whether you're on the dole, which I used to be, or whether you've got a block of flats, which I have. So it's like I got a mate who was on the dole with me back then, who's basically still on the dole, who's now moved into one of my flats. So
What a good bloke.
Yeah, it was. The funny thing is that it's a 2-bedroom flat. It's inner city Melbourne.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
And he said, how much? And I'm like, oh, well, he's a friend and I want to look after him. So two-bedroom flat, inner city Melbourne, $150 a week, I said. Yeah, come on. That's, you know what, the first thing he said is, I better have a look at it. Like, yeah, all right, mate, you have a look at it. See if it's not right for you. Yeah, he looked at it, it's fine. Yeah, but anyway, so that's a joke from, involves me having money in a block of flats, but the same mates I had when I was back smoking bongs back in the late 80s, early 90s.
No, that's really cool. But what I really admire is that there is a pattern I see when I meet people who have are still going in their career, like Janine Ellis, who I'm in business with.
Boost Juice.
Boost Juice. Yeah, she started as a 31-year-old with 3 kids. And
her husband actually was one of the first people to see me. Her husband's a radio guy. Yeah. So he was at the start of my career. I don't think he employed me. Well, maybe he did actually on a Saturday morning show. He might have been one of the first people to employ me on commercial radio. Her husband.
G'day, Jeff.
Hey.
Jeff. So I mean, every one of them had big breaks. Boris had his big break with Wizard, and Alice had Boost, but didn't take. I think she said she didn't pay herself a wage for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, right.
And it wasn't much until she did. She was like 40 grand or something.
Yeah.
So like with the overnight success thing, it took 6 years. You're on the breadline, 6-7 years.
Yeah.
Thank God for your parents. The people that would
absolutely. Yeah,
kick
they
goal,
were.
Mate.
Yeah, they were. Well, they were going. Maybe you should go back to university, but But they,
disappointments.
They always said you always got. My dad would always say, you can always come home, mate. You can always come home. So, yeah. So they were a bit. They weren't sure about my career choice. I'm not going to lie. But then once once they saw I was being successful, they were worried that they were going to be lending me money till I was 50. But once I proved correct, and they did stay with me the whole time, obviously.
Because when you're on that path, because there's people that listen to this that are on their own path toward their goal. They're impossible, and being a comedian in Australia. To make it to where you are is a dream for some people.
That was a dream for me.
That's amazing. Yeah. And I think it's something to note about how when you're on the path, you could be seeing people have houses before you.
Oh, absolutely. I remember
nicer things.
I remember because I talked about having I just started that internet IT degree back in 1989, and I remember maybe 5 years later, a guy who I started that course with was already on 200K.
Yeah.
And he said, "How are you going?" And I'm like, "Yeah, well, I just got rent assistance from Centrelink, so we're all kicking goals." So, but so that was an early thing. Oh, Jesus, God, and I'm like, but I loved what I did, and that's really important. If you love it, it doesn't matter. I mean, people say it's easy for you to say you've done well, but the attitude that I had, I loved it anyway. I still work for basically free. I still do stand-up comedy. I'll work tonight for free after this.
Yeah,
so I just love stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
So I'm actually doing, and I love comedy. I love doing comedy on radio. I love doing comedy on TV. I love comedy. So really, all the things I do, I love it. So, and the money is a byproduct. But it's I mean, I've never knock it back, But even now, even if I do a gig and someone, the comedy club, and they say, you want your $50? I said, yeah, I want my $50. I want it. I earn it. Give me my $50. So so I don't knock the money back, but I don't do it for the money. I do it because I love it.
Yeah. For anyone out there who's looking to start, they think they're funny and they want to test that out. I mean, these days we've got so many platforms to be able to.
Absolutely. I mean, you can people are getting famous without ever walking on stage, which really annoys me. I'm not going to lie. But and then they book a gig and they sell a gig out through their internet.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's good luck to them and well done. I'm jealous. Remember that. But if you want to do stand-up comedy though, I'd just go to a comedy club and just get up wherever you can. Just get up. You got nothing to lose. We have nothing to lose in life. I flatlined on my first night. No one laughed at all. I looked like an absolute utter dickhead, and I was sad, but I survived. So you've got nothing to lose. Whatever you do in life, nothing matters. Nothing matters. We're all dead. Everyone's dust. Relax, enjoy yourself, and don't get stuck in the past or the future. Be now. Be now.
Jeez, that's just inspiring.
I'm real now. I sent a text message to a school mum only today. Her daughter, who's a very good basketball player, she's 12. Got a foul to win. So she had 2 shots to win the game, grand final. This is yesterday. They're 1 point down. She got 2 shots to win. Her first reaction when she got the foul was she started crying because she was so nervous. And it's like, instead of having the mindset, this is a great opportunity, what fun we're having, her mindset was, look what I've got to lose. It was the wrong mindset, and she missed both shots.
Oh, it's awful.
But you know what? The lesson for me, and I sent her mum a text message, but she hasn't replied, so maybe she's offended. I said, your daughter's got to change her mindset. If she had a mindset, this is fun, look at me. I've got an opportunity to win the game. She probably would have hit at least one, and they would have at least had a draw, and then maybe one in overtime. She might have hit both. She's too good to have missed both. She missed both because of the mindset, which is looking at what could go wrong. Yeah. And we all do that more often than we should. I do it too much myself. But let's just stay in the moment and, smile, because you might as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, I remember talking to Michael Bevan about this, and he, as we
fascinated by cricketers and, what their mindsets, and there's so much pressure, Yeah,
and it's often not, like back in the Cricket Academy, he was talking about how they never focus on mindset. They thought it wasn't yet enough important cause to produce a good effect. And he wasn't scoring his runs in the test team, but he was averaging high 50s and everything else. And he was working on his technique the whole time, but it was this. And he's like, if I just had more of that, worked on this more.
I look back in my career and that first gig that went well, that was mindset. That was something coming to me, but really it was just mindset. Relax. There's nothing to lose. I remember doing the Montreal Comedy Festival, which is, as a comedian, was a big big moment when you get invited to Montreal, the international festival, and there's a lot of very famous comedians there. And I did it a few times. But the first time I did not have a good time at all. My mindset was wrong. It was all about, this goes well, I'll get a sitcom in America. It was a terrible attitude, and I did not enjoy it at all. I remember coming back on the plane thinking, I had the worst time of my life then, and that was meant to be my dream. It was just like, I wasted that. Went back a few times, but I remember once, the show was called Comedy All Stars, and there were a lot of big names, like international big names, on the show, and they were all getting standing ovations as they came on. I walked on, not a big name in America or Canada, and no one stood. And so that was my opening line, though. So, you're not going to stand for me, which just came straight to me, and it got a big laugh. But it was living in the moment and not worrying about my ego. It was just and then at the end of that set, they all stood up, and I got a standing ovation in Montreal. It's the only one I've ever had in my life. Even in Australia, they don't stand for me. But it was that mindset. But you know what? I went back the next year, and all I was thinking about was the standing ovation I got the year before. So I'm on stage the next year in the same theatre, and in my mind, I'm thinking, they're not going to stand. They're not going to stand. Rather than enjoying being on stage, my mind is worried about the outcome. And guess what? They didn't stand. Because I'd already put that in my head, and it was like, why are you not enjoying your life? Enjoy now. Everything else is bullshit. What happens in the past doesn't matter. What happens in the future doesn't matter. All you've got's now.
It's so true. Yeah, you can't. Yeah, it's inspiring, man. It's so true. There's only 3 places you can live in your head: past, present, future.
Yeah, and the only one is worth it is now, because you get to live now. You get to enjoy the mystery of being alive.
You can't smell anything from the past.
Mate, you can't. The past is dead, and whether it was good or bad, it's gone. And often a good past, if you try to hold on to a past that was good, it's damaging, because you compare yourself to now as you were then, Yeah. And you're older now. You're not as, you can't run as fast. So stop thinking about the past and the future. Who cares? The sun could burn out at any moment. At one point, existence will stop. Yeah. Probably not in our lifetimes, but you never know.
Yeah, but it will. Beginning has to have an end. Yes. That's for sure. I'm desperate to ask just one last thing, just a little tips and tricks, because there'll be people here who might be wanting to work on, mate, if there are comedians and people who want to get into the industry, like, did you do comedy classes?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't do any comedy classes. The best class, I think, is be on stage, honestly. But it's great. I didn't even watch that much stand-up before. I was so naive when I started. I didn't think I could do the same joke twice. I thought if I walk on stage and do the same routine, the barman will heckle and say, I've heard it. Yeah. I was so naive. But you know what? In a way, that helped me create new material. Like some nights I'd walk on stage and no one would laugh at all. But because it was always new material, I didn't realise I had no safety net. So, be as naive as you can, I'd say, in life. Just go with no expectations. And but I'd say if you want to do comedy, get on a comedy stage. And there's a lot of open mic nights you can do wherever you are, in whatever city you're in. There's open mic nights, or you can travel to the bigger cities, which is probably more opportunity. So, but never always remember that life is ridiculous, especially as a comedian. There's so many sad comedians who in their lives don't see how funny life is, which is the ultimate irony.
Yeah. I think that's really good. That's a good note to end on. But, mate, you got shows coming up?
I do, yes. You can see me the Melbourne Comedy Festival starting at Easter. I don't know when this goes out, but it starts at Easter and then goes through for 4 weeks. Shows in Brisbane coming up at the Brisbane Comedy Festival, and I need to book more gigs. Yeah. I've just done quite a few, but I need to book more. So just go to davehughes.com.au, actually. davehughes.com.au and see where I'm at. I need to work on that website as well, actually. But it's there. davehughes.com.au.
Just bloody subscribe to Hughesey's email list and he'll send you out when he needs to.
Or get me on my Insta, Hughesy.
Yeah, he'll write back.
I will, actually. DM me, I'll write back.
Thanks, Hughesy, for being
here. Good on you, mate. Cheers. Sore shoulder.